Okay, and this is the next part of my horoscope videos. I did do a few days of separate filming, so if I kind of splice different days worth of film, you know, with a section of the collective message and then the actual horoscopes, just like don't mind if there's any lighting changes or outfit changes. That's just sort of what had to happen to make this video possible. This horoscope video is going to be for the summer zodiac sign, so this is going to cover the placements in Cancer, Leo, and Virgo. So what I recommend doing is looking at the sign that matches your ascendant. You can also look at the sign that matches your moon or sun placement, especially if you were born during the day, then I'd recommend looking at the sun placement. If you're born at night, then maybe look at the moon placement. But overall, I really recommend looking at your rising sign horoscope if you do know what your rising sign is. I'll put the little link at the bottom. There's an easy way to look up your chart accurately and for free. Message for the collective to begin with before jumping into the horoscope. So the energy that I've been picking up on, it does feel like for a lot of people there's going to be the energy of sort of like a storm gathering. It does feel sort of like a high wind is picking up, and I do see sort of like ominous clouds in the sky, but I am also seeing the Four of Wands, and I'm also seeing the Knight of Swords. So it feels like for a lot of people there's going to be questions about what it means to be stable, about sort of like what constitutes a happy, healthy home, whether that's, you know, mentally on a personal level, whether that corresponds to an actual living situation, or just what it is that you're going through that sort of feels like there's upheaval and that brings those questions into light. That's going to be the focus of a lot of people's mental processes at this time. I am seeing the Hierophant, so there are going to be questions of ethics and morality and sort of like what is the right thing to do. I get the feeling of a crossroads. I get the feeling of a challenge for a lot of folks. It's going to be coming up particularly at the end of this year, especially in December. You may feel like the beginning crescendos, like late November, sort of like the seeds being sown in a way, but it will also feel like the culmination of different themes that have come up these past several months, especially with Mars having been retrograde. So it's sort of like a full circle, but then it's also a seeding, and it feels like there's going to be a little storyline for a lot of you that goes from kind of November, December, and then maybe till the beginning of January. For some of you that may go a little bit further out into 2021. I do want to put forth the disclaimer that even though I am well versed in astrology, my specialty is not necessarily to look at the astrological transits and to look at them in accordance to their relation to like each rising sign of using whole sign houses. So for now, I'm only going to relay these messages in these sort of like intuitive horoscopes, kind of like using my connection to spirit and my intuition, and relaying what comes to me via my third eye. A lot of that will include different tarot cards, oracle cards that appear to me, again, just like clairvoyantly. I'm sure at some point in the future I will incorporate more like explicitly astrological techniques, and I will actually look at the different transits and what houses they're going to according to each rising sign, and sort of relay my own thought out interpretations in regard to, you know, what I notice. But as of now, I'm just going to focus on relaying things intuitively because that is my specialty, and I know that there will be some truth, ideally, in some of these messages that come through. So, you know, if it works for you, take it, kind of leave what doesn't resonate, because again, these are general enough that they apply to these various, you know, signs, 12 of them total. But if you want a more in-depth reading, you're of course encouraged and most welcome to do that. You can do that at the link below, and book a more specific reading, especially, you know, with the holidays coming up and with the new year coming up. I do offer year ahead forecasts, and I do that using typically oracle cards, or I can also just do it intuitively, though I do also pair the tarot cards with my intuition. Okay, so this horoscope is for Cancer placements, especially those of you with Cancer as your rising sign, but I am getting, you know, they're showing me like salt base. They're showing me like there's a dash of maybe relevance for those of you who have Cancer as your sun sign or your moon sign. So the signs that they're showing me right now is, you know, they're showing me that Four of Wands, and they are also showing me the Nine of Swords and the Knight of Swords, so 9 and then the Knight of Swords, and then I'm getting some of the Lenormand Mountain. So it feels like there's been an obstacle or some kind of like upheaval. Even though it's like an obstacle, it feels like a challenge and delay. It sort of interrupts, it disrupts your feeling of an understanding or momentum about where it is that your path has been taking you. So it just feels like there was something that was kind of like a fairly substantial roadblock that came up within this past year. I'm getting especially July, and they are telling me specifically Mars retrograde. So if those of you, who have Cancer placements, or particularly the rising sign in Cancer, then you may know what I'm talking about if you have been tracking sort of that trajectory of Mars retrograde and where it's been going back and forth and what different themes have been coming up for you. So what I'm seeing right now is they're showing me Toad. They're showing me Toad from like Super Mario, and I'm getting the feeling of mushrooms. And so they're kind of, I'm weaving things together with the cards that I saw earlier. So with these mushrooms, it just feels like, when you're foraging in a forest, symbolically what the woods represents is a situation of mystery where you don't necessarily see the whole landscape. So you don't really maybe know where exactly it is that you're going. You don't really get to have that wide, expansive, objective view of things. You're mostly faced with what is immediately surrounding you. And so when I don't know if you're foraging for mushrooms or if you just happen to see mushrooms there, but this question of, will it feed you or will it poison you? So I'm getting the sense that there was something offered to you, because now they're showing me the alternative of someone kind of like handing you a plate, but you're looking at the plate, you're not really sure like whether what's on it is like meant for you in a good way, like if it's going to bring about positive outcomes or not. It feels like it could definitely be relational. It's about whether a situation was able to feed you, whether you're able to subsist on it or not. For some of you, I'm getting different topics. Some of you, it may relate to job, your work life, or it may also, again, be relational. They're showing me career. So it seems like for some of you, like career is definitely one of the things that has come up about kind of having, I don't know if it's second doubts they're showing, or second thoughts or doubts, but they're showing me the Two of Swords, which shows, I'll show you the picture somewhere here, but they're showing me the Two of Swords, which represents kind of holding back emotions and maybe reserving judgment. It's about feeling undecided and kind of holding things back so that, you don't kind of have these feelings spill out and sort of be unmanageable or feel unmanageable for you. And so what they're showing me, some of the things that they were showing me earlier with the Nine of Swords and Knight of Swords is just there's a lot going on for you mentally. And they're showing me again the Four of Swords. So they're kind of showing that right now you've been trying to lay low and not, really overthink too much, because, there has been that tendency to like have these restless or kind of like worst case scenarios, restless thoughts or worst case scenarios get the best of you or overwhelm you. But it feels like your coping mechanism right now has been just to rest and relax and kind of find joy in your just kind of current flow, whatever the status quo is for you, because they're showing me that Four of Wands. So what they're showing me now, and they're saying, they seem to be telling me this is maybe more relevant for moon placements for some reason, but I am getting the actual moon tarot card. But there is a feeling of sort of like at rest for some of you, and again, they're saying it can apply more broadly to Cancer placements, but particularly for the moon sign, it just feels like maybe there's something about the way that you handle emotions in general that affects how you've been handling the situation that's come along. So with the moon tarot card having come up, that is showing sort of like a situation that has brought up sort of like your shadow side, things that have been repressed sort of psychologically. It feels like a gray area, and that's definitely what they're confirming to me. They're showing me other things to represent a gray area in your life. And so, what they've been painting for me is really this picture of just like psychological and emotional unease, just sort of an uneasiness. You're feeling like the boat maybe hasn't started to fully rock, but there's definitely some of like, I don't know if it's like a current in the ocean that's picking up. There's definitely more energy gathering. But what I see at the depths of the ocean is they're showing me a really big, it feels like a blue whale. It's really enormous. And when I see the whale, And now they're also showing me like an image, sort of like a person. I feel like it's meant to represent you and your intuition, because they're showing me the High Priestess now. They're showing me like this woman kind of floating in the water, and she looks kind of ethereal. And it is linked to the whale, because what basically all of these things have to do with is they convey a spiritual theme. They convey being in touch with your emotions, being in touch with your higher self, and the journey that your soul is currently on, because there is sort of process of spiritual education going on right now. What they're telling me, I'm getting that feeling of like kind of a barrier, or like a ramming against the barrier, and again, it's showing you obstacles for you to overcome, and it's a plot point that's going to connect to something later on in 2021. I do feel like that's especially like maybe the middle to the end of summer. There's something about like the middle of the year-ish, maybe a little bit after. Some of you, the timing may shift a little bit, but I'm getting there's going to be a point there where they're showing me like a pow and a bang, kind of like a cartoon explosion. So and then they're showing me what is that called? You know, with the cartoons when they blow something up, not ammo, I forgot what it's called, but it's basically a detonation, and then it feels like this mountain sort of exploding. So there's something about the barrier that you're facing now. They're telling me for Cancerians, there's going to be a delay in that. They're telling me the signs are there. Listen to your intuition, because they're showing me the crab, the Cancer crab, and they're showing me the High Priestess card, which is all about intuition, kind of recognizing the signs, following your gut feelings, knowing when it's the right time to move, and knowing when it's the right time to just sort of lay still. So right now they are showing me again that Four of Swords. So it feels like, you know, even though you may have little moments of like anxiety or unease, because they are showing me like the Tower card, but it's really to represent emotional upheaval. You know, what's going on right now. Again, they're telling you to be patient and awake, because there's just going to be a delay towards something that's going to link to what you're feeling right now. So Cancerians are really saying, hold tight, be patient. This is all working out like it's supposed to work out, and kind of see how this continues to play out. It's going to carry out. I feel like for a lot of you, it's going to carry out for a few more months at least. But this thing that you've been waiting for, like the situation that sort of has been feeling stagnant for you, again, for a lot of you that has to do with work, it feels like there's going to be like a demolition in a positive way, and it's going to clear your path a little bit. And for some of you, you may feel like there's not a clear path, or not a clear path, but it's like you'll be able to see, but it's going to look like there's like an abyss before you. So it's like, even though you have like there's no more mountain before, you're gonna see like, oh my god, there's like a chasm before me, how am I gonna cross it? But they're saying, look, when you get to that point, we're gonna help you, because I'm seeing almost like a page turning. But they're showing me like the secret emoji, and they're basically saying that right now it's kind of like a secret and they can't tell you everything, but that at that point, when that like demolition of the barrier occurs, I feel like they're going to be there with the signposts to help you look at the clues and figure out how it is that you're going to cross maybe a gap that feels uncrossable. So hopefully all of that makes sense. Hopefully it wasn't too abstract. If any of you have questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. I am again also available for more personalized readings if you wanted to see what specifically is coming up for you right now. Again, this is like pretty generalized to apply to a lot of people with Cancer energy in their charts, especially if it is your sun, moon, and rising. Okay, so this message is going out to Leo placements, especially those of you who have Leo sun, moon, or rising. So what Spirit is showing me right now is they're showing me the moon card, the tarot card, and they're also showing me the Justice card, impeded by the Mountain Lenormand card, which is like kind of right in front of it. It's directly facing the Justice card, who feels like there's not really a way out. And so what Spirit is telling me is just they're telling me about how this pandemic has affected a lot of you who have really strong Leo energy in your birth charts. And so what they're showing me is sort of like the class clown and like life of the party. They're showing me like Gatsby from The Great Gatsby, and it's like I see the class clown like looking sort of like upset or like downcast in an empty classroom. I'm seeing Gatsby in an empty deserted mansion. It's really about you being the life of the party, but not having that venue, not having that space, not having that same environment anymore. It just feels like just obviously this pandemic has affected a lot of people, but I am feeling like for Leo placements, like it really hit where it hurts, because I'm just sort of seeing like a red carpet. But you know what they're showing me right now is actually like, when you think red carpet, of course you think of like Hollywood, making a grand entrance. What they're showing me now is a red carpet that's actually within a church, and they are showing me sort of like religious iconography. Like they're showing me sort of like the Hierophant card, or like a Pope figure. I'm seeing a nun praying, sort of like that kind of religious devotion. And so what they're showing me now is they're showing a mirror held up to a lion figure, a person with like a lion's head, and that obviously represents you. What they're really trying to show now, and what they're trying to convey, is that this period in which, you know, these social settings have been ripped from you, you know, and Leo placements are so grand and they're really magnanimous and they love being the life of the party, again, like I said, and being sort of like the heart of a crowd and connecting with people. You're obviously in a situation where you can't do that anymore. And what Spirit is trying to convey to you is that part of, at least, I don't know if I want to say the reason, but part of like the opportunity here for you in this isolation, there's a challenge here. There's an opportunity for you to self-reflect. I feel like there's an opportunity to contemplate and come to a moment of stillness, where without sort of like all the distractions, and I feel like sort of like all the props have been shown for what they are. I'm seeing sort of like, if there were like people that had been around you that kind of turned into wooden props, sort of like for theater, and I see one of them in particular as Alice in Wonderland. So I kind of feel like there's this thing of illusions being dispelled, of seeing props for what they were, certain connections for what they were. I feel like certain threads that were connecting you to people are actually pretty thin. I'm seeing sort of like cobwebs, or cobweb level thin. And the reason they're also showing me the cobweb is because it relates to a tarot deck that I use. It's the Animal Totem Tarot deck, and they're showing me I don't know if it was a Black Widow, but it was a spider, and that was sort of like the animal that represented the High Priestess card, and the High Priestess card represents intuition. So what they're saying here is, intuitively, it's almost like now that the chips have fallen where they have, and now that you kind of like are not so, you know, in the moment, sort of like carefree and like relating to all these people, it's not like your social life is not as dense. You're sort of seeing certain things for what they are. You're seeing certain people for who they were. You're seeing that some of these connections may be like there wasn't as much substance there as you thought. It's not like these, you know, substantial things to hold on to between you and someone else. It just feels like for some people they're just really, it just feels like really wispy, almost like air, and like there wasn't really that much to connect you to them. And so what Spirit wants you to know is this is an opportunity to really identify and really, how do I phrase it? It's sort of like figure out what an actual relationship, an actual connection means to you, what a meaningful connection would be like, and sort of see like what figures in your life are actually there for you, and that you want to stay rooted in your life, you know, throughout this pandemic and beyond that. I feel like, again, like things have sort of been laid down during this pandemic for you to see what they are, right? So it's sort of like things don't stand as part of like your reality in the same way anymore. Things, you're sort of seeing behind the curtains, right? Because you're seeing certain things in your life as like props, just sort of like I guess background figures, or things that are not like as main or essential to the production of your life as you maybe initially thought they were. You know, maybe you just never really thought about it. So that's kind of what has been brought up and just brought to light for you right now. So I see you journaling, and I'm seeing sort of like a wide clearing, and I'm seeing your feet in a pond, and you're sort of like in a grassy area, and there's woods nearby. And I'm seeing the fact that your feet are in the water is a good sign. It shows that you've kind of done more than just dip your toe into your emotions or your spiritual intuitive realm. That's what water represents. It's like you're not afraid to have done that, to get your feet wet, and you're journaling. So you're really consciously processing your emotions, consciously processing what your social life has been looking like for you and what it means to you. You're kind of going into things with sort of renewed, it's like clear eyes and a renewed inspiration. I feel like there's opportunity for renewed vigor, almost like a breath of fresh air. It's like as you move forward, you know, through these next few months that are unfolding, as you're just moving into 2021, that's what I'm sensing, especially maybe like end of spring, like early summer. It feels like there it feels like there's sort of I don't know if it's a turning point, but it feels like there's definitely like an energetic hotspot there for you, where it feels like something about where you're at right now, it's gonna feel like even colder, stronger water. So it's almost like you've been plunged into I kind of want to say like almost like a cold lake. It's not in a negative way. It's very startling to the senses when you immerse yourself in cold water, but it's sort of like that shock kind of like jump starts your system. I've kind of heard people doing this, like intentionally going in cold water can be very healing. It can help sort of like your, I don't know if it's like your immune system or what, I forgot what it was, but it sort of like reinvigorates you in a positive way. It helps your body kind of like jumpstart some things. So I'm feeling like that's what this is gonna, that energetic hotspot for whatever reason, like whatever is going to come up for you at that sort of time frame, it's going to kind of connect to what you're going through right now. And this is sort of like telling me precursor, and they're showing me like appetizer or like forward, and it feels like going to be a little bit deeper into the book by that time. Whatever's going to unfold, they're not showing me like a lot of what's going to happen over the next few months. It feels, I don't know if it's more flat or if they're showing me the secret emoji, which means like they're not really going to tell me what's going to happen over these next few months, especially at the beginning of 2021, but a little deeper into that, several months in 2021, there's something about your social life that's getting a restart. Because I'm seeing like I forgot what that machine is called, maybe it's a defibrillator, but sort of like restart someone who's gone into cardiac arrest or whose heart is like about to fail. So that sounds super dramatic, but especially for you Leos who have a lot of heart, there's something about that is actually going to be, I feel like, potentially really good for you. So their advice for you right now is to go into things, intentionally reflect on like the connections that have been there for you, what's kind of come up, who you've started to see with clear eyes, and see like, are they really a friend to you or not? They're telling me like friend or foe. What is it? They're telling me friend or foe as a question to sort of like relate to what it is that you've been going through. And again, seeing people with these clear eyes of honesty again, now that you're not just like carefree, going through the motions, going on with your life and being friends with sort of like whoever's there. Now that there's been distance from people, given the pandemic, it's really been opportunity to kind of step out of the limelight or understand who it is that, you know, you kind of want to be around you in a more sustained way. It's really seeing what relationships are going to be sustainable and meaningful for you. So I hope all of that made sense for those of you with Leo placements. Again, like, there's been a lot of losses for us overall, but you know, my heart especially goes out to Leo placements who are probably really struggling right now because they're not able to thrive in sort of like their happy place and being around people and being with their friends. For those of you Leos who kind of have that energy, obviously not everyone does because there's a lot of nuances to particular people and even within birth charts, but for those of you who are really feeling it hard, like, my heart goes out to you, and hopefully you're able to take something away from this message. Okay, so the next message that I'm going to relay is for Virgo placements, particularly Virgo rising, moon, or sun folks. So what I'm seeing right now is I'm seeing sort of like, at first I thought it was mice, but now I'm almost seeing like bunnies, and I'm seeing, what is it, like it's not a merry-go-round, it's, I hate when I blank out on words and I just struggle to articulate what it is that I'm seeing, but I'm seeing sort of that circle spinny ride on a playground, and what I'm getting sort of highlighted for you is the matter of pleasure. And for some reason they're showing me almost like penance, or they're showing me repentance, and like I almost see like punishment or like self-discipline, almost like, I don't know if yeah, really just like self-punishment, and just sort of like inflicting or kind of having negative thoughts about yourself at the very least, in regard to finding moments of pleasure. It just feels like the matter of pleasure, joy, and creativity is kind of being highlighted for you right now, or at least this is what Spirit wants to convey to you as a message of wisdom at this time. So, you know, how am I getting that? Okay, so because bunnies typically have to do with that sense of fertility, I'm feeling like creativity, I'm feeling potentially sensual pleasure, and I am seeing again like that merry-go-round sort of spinning ride in a playground, you know, has to do with connecting to the inner child. So it's kind of all of these playful elements of being in tune with the body, and leading with sort of like the heart or with joy, and not really leading as much with the mind, or maybe not the ego, but that sense of like I'm seeing Jiminy Cricket, but sort of like Jiminy Cricket with a whip. So sort of like that idea of like what you should be doing, sort of like rationality. What I was probably trying to say earlier was super ego, that Freudian concept of doing what, like, oh, what does society think that I should be doing right now? And I'm getting that particularly in relation to work. That's going to be relevant to some of you. This feeling of kind of like guilt about wanting more playtime or indulging in more playtime. I just sort of see like a jump rope. And so for me, when I see jump rope too, there's also the potential for an attitude where, you know, you are actually like being rigorous even when it comes to your playtime. I feel like with jump rope, it's like so incessant. And I mean, unless you really genuinely find joy in jump rope, there's something about it that there's just a strong sense of rigor even to that sort of particular playtime activity. So I feel like for Virgos, it's almost like a feeling of like nonstop and like kind of an incessant I want to say almost like overthinking, and it's sort of applying to even your pleasure, and I feel like that's almost driving you a little bit not in a good place. Like I don't want to say like what's a good way of saying like not driving you crazy, but just sort of like you're not able to find rest at this time. That's kind of what I'm feeling. You're not even, it's just sort of like this kind of nervous energy that I feel from those of you, especially like even as we're entering the winter months, or just having been in this pandemic in general. Like with the winter months, what am I getting? I'm getting sort of a freeze out, and I'm getting, for some reason, there's going to be like, it almost feels like hibernation, but it's just super cold. And it feels, I almost want to say stagnant, but there's not a lot of motion. And there's something about being in this sort of like wintry, cold, emotional environment. There's something about your circumstances that's going to feel that way. I'm sure for a lot of us with like the holidays coming up and being in the middle of a pandemic right now, and maybe for those of you who feel more isolated, or who are intentionally, of course, isolating yourselves because of what's going on right now, it just feels like there's something where in that moment of like stillness and chattering, I feel like teeth chattering, it's your teeth chattering, so you're very cold. There's something about not having like the warmth that you need, where you're gonna almost kind of break. There's something about like the surface of the ice, if there was like a frozen pond, kind of cracking, and then you're being almost like forced to see what lies in those waters. So that may sound super abstract, but really what I'm getting from that is sort of like you have an underlying emotional layer, and that it just feels like you've been sort of divorced from that, and it just feels like you kind of go through the motions, or you're running sort of like on an operative like time schedule of like, I gotta do this, and this, without really slowing down, or without really like feeling things out from a place of bodily joy. And I feel like that's what that pandemic is bringing up for you, and this is gonna come under intense focus for you, you know, give or take, but you know how intense that focus is, but it is going to surface, especially they're showing me like January, maybe some February, but especially like January. I'm feeling there's going to kind of be sort of like, I don't know if it's a solidifying, but more of a gathering of energy in that particular area of your life, or just sort of that theme. And there's going to be the potential for self-reflection on what it is that you actually need emotionally, what is not sustainable for you. It's going to be that moment of like in the middle of winter, right? When it's not warm, it's a time that feels barren. It's a time where it feels like it's not life-giving. When the ice cracks and breaks, and you're looking at what's beneath the surface, it's really that moment again of realizing and delving in deeper about what actually nourishes you from the heart and soul and spirit. I'm just seeing sort of like what psychologically feels like a gray area there for you, because I'm seeing the Moon Tarot card. So it's really about going into this deeper side of you that maybe you don't generally, I don't know, I mean, depends on you how often you go deeper and try to like assess your thoughts or be more contemplative and self-reflective, but it just feels like there's an opportunity for you to go into the gray area and to pick up these like fish from the water, and you're gonna think it's like, you know, from the water it was like the frozen pond, but you know, once it's cracked open, you can potentially pick up what you thought was like pollution. It's like these dirty things that maybe you don't want to face, or that were hiding under the surface, and you thought it was maybe like a fish that died from pollution, because that's what I'm seeing. It kind of looks like gross. When you pull it out, it's like it's a pretty healthy fish. And what that represents is like these things that you feel like are part of like the recesses of your mind, or like dirty sort of like unwanted things in your mind, maybe like thoughts that aren't so pleasant. I will say that maybe emotions that don't feel pleasant for you, maybe psychological underpinnings, maybe about the way you grew up or things like that, or problems about how you relate to pleasure, things that are kind of holding you back. There's this opportunity for you to pick these things up, these insights, and in that act of processing and reflecting, you sort of like transmute what had seemed like this gross, dirty thing that you don't want to touch, but then it turned into like this really valuable spiritual insight. That's what that means when I see you pull it up and then it turns to it's a pretty nice fish. It's not like a huge fish, but it's a process of looking at all these little things, and then you're I don't know, picking up these fish in the meantime, and that represents these sort of like golden nuggets of like truth about yourself, of wisdom, of learning, and really learning about yourself in that valuable way, and really understanding yourself better and what's kind of been holding you back. It's sort of like, what are these false beliefs that I've been taking stock in and investing in? What is it that complicates my relation to pleasure, and how is it that I'm going to move forward, once hibernation is over, so to speak, and I'm able to move forward in a more, what is it? You're able to move forward in kind of a freer way and kind of engage with life again and with warmth. What are you going to do in order to keep that vitality up and to feel a little bit more peaceful and at ease in the body, and flowing into pleasure, and doing what it is that feels like rest to you, that feels like fun to you, without applying these pressures on yourself about what it is that you think that you should be doing, especially in light of the pandemic. I just keep getting the sense that this pandemic is really showing for a lot of people what isn't sustainable, and it applies to different areas of people's lives, with some coming into greater focus than others, for particular folks. But this is kind of what I'm getting for you. It's really about maybe the essential pleasures, about joy, having fun, creativity in some way, what it is for you that kind of feels fertile and nurturing, without necessarily playing into a template of what you think that you should be doing, and then with that being especially rooted into societal conditioning. So I hope that was clear, and that the advice was clear, which is basically like, keep going into this process and kind of feel things out. Especially I keep getting like January, you may start to feel even greater kind of contemplation, starting with like the end of December. I don't know if something's gonna happen then, but definitely January feels like a pretty, I don't know, strong spot, a good window of time for those of you with Virgo placements to really self-assess, and figure out what it is that you need in order to feel like the land is fertile for you. For those of you who have questions, feel free to drop a comment, and I'll get back to you. You're also free to book a personalized reading where I can relay, more specific information that's sort of like tailor-made to what you're going through, and where I can, potentially relay messages on what specific blocks have been kind of inhibiting you from feeling a little bit more at ease, in terms of relating to joy and finding those things that make you feel like you're having fun without feeling guilty about it. So yeah, let me know if you have questions, and I would love to know if these messages do end up resonating with you.